In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where the stars burn bright and civilizations rise and fall like waves on a distant shore, the Galactic Union stood as a beacon of progress. Comprising the most advanced alien species, each prided itself on unparalleled technology and sophisticated warfare tactics. They saw themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, holding an unwavering belief in their superiority over the primitive and unremarkable human race. To them, humans were little more than a footnote in the galaxy's grand history, a species to be observed but never truly respected. But the galaxy was not without its threats, and the greatest of them all had emerged from the cold void, the Raxian swarm. This relentless, hive-minded species moved as one, consuming everything in its path with an insatiable hunger. The swarm was not just a force, it was a plague, spreading across the stars, leaving desolation in its wake. The Galactic Union, with all its advancements and arrogance, had underestimated the sheer might of this enemy. Time and again, they deployed their best fleets, their most brilliant strategists, only to watch them crumble under the weight of the swarm's overwhelming numbers and unyielding ferocity. It was in this dire hour, with the Union's strongest worlds on the brink of collapse, that desperation led them to consider the unthinkable. Every logical option had been exhausted, every plan had failed. And so, with heavy reluctance and no small measure of disdain, the Union turned to humanity, a race they had long dismissed as insignificant. Humanity was not unknown to the Union. They were the scrappy survivors from a blue planet in a far-flung corner of the galaxy. Their technology, by Union standards, was outdated, their tactics simplistic. Yet there was something about humans that made the Union uneasy. Despite their perceived primitiveness, humanity had thrived where others had faltered. They had survived countless internal conflicts, natural disasters, and even their own worst tendencies. And though they lacked the sleek ships and sophisticated weapons of the Union, they possessed an indomitable spirit, a trait that had seen them through their darkest days. Among the humans was Captain Alexander Reed, a name that carried weight even among those who barely knew of Earth's existence. Reed was a veteran, hardened by wars that had scarred both his body and soul. He had led men into battles where victory was a distant dream, yet he had always found a way to snatch it from the jaws of defeat. His team, a small but elite group of warriors, was as unassuming as the man himself, quiet, disciplined, and fiercely loyal. When the call from the Galactic Union came, Reed and his team were not surprised. They had heard the whispers, the rumors of a threat that no weapon or strategy could stop. But the Union's request still carried a bitter taste. It was clear that the aliens did not see them as equals, but as a last resort, a desperate gamble in a game where the stakes were nothing less than survival. The Union's representatives, with their polished armor and lofty airs, made little effort to hide their skepticism. They looked at Reed's team, dressed in battle-worn gear, carrying weapons that seemed archaic, and questioned the wisdom of their own decision. Yet Reed was not one to waste words. He listened to the Union's plan with a stoic expression, his mind already calculating, analyzing the battlefield that awaited them. The Union's strategy was simple, almost insulting in its expectation. The humans were to be a distraction, a small force meant to buy time while the Union's main fleet prepared a larger counterattack. It was clear they expected Reed's team to hold the line just long enough to serve their purpose, nothing more. But Captain Reed understood the nature of the enemy better than the Union realized. The Raxian swarm was not a foe to be met head-on with brute force or dazzling technology. It was a force of nature, a storm that could not be stopped, only endured. Reed knew that survival against such a foe would not come from the barrel of a gun or the edge of a blade, but from something deeper, something that the Union, in all its wisdom, had failed to grasp. Accepting the mission, Reed offered no grand speeches, no promises of victory. Instead, he quietly prepared his team, knowing that the real battle would not be fought on the ground or in the skies, but within the hearts of those who stood against the swarm. For humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology or numbers, but its ability to endure, to adapt, and to find strength in the most unlikely of places. As the humans moved into position, the alien soldiers watched with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. They had seen many species rise and fall, and they had little reason to believe that these humans, with their primitive ways, would be any different. But Captain Reed had no interest in proving them wrong. He knew that the battle ahead would speak for itself, and when it did, the galaxy would finally understand the true measure of humanity. The battlefield stretched out before them, a desolate landscape scarred by the remnants of previous conflicts. It was a place where life had long since been extinguished, leaving only jagged rocks and treacherous ravines. The Raxian swarm had chosen this ground, a place where their overwhelming numbers could swarm and suffocate any opposition. To the alien soldiers, it seemed the perfect trap, one that would surely ensnare the human forces they so easily dismissed. The alien commanders, seasoned veterans of countless battles, surveyed the terrain with a mixture of confidence and disdain. They had arranged their forces in a calculated formation, expecting the humans to follow a predictable, futile path. The swarm would descend, engulfing the humans in a relentless wave, and the battle would be over before it began. The alien soldiers, with their superior technology and carefully laid plans, believed they knew how this story would end. But as the humans took their positions, there was something different in the air, something the aliens couldn't quite place. Captain Reed moved with a calm, purposeful determination, his team following his lead with quiet efficiency. The aliens noted the humans' seemingly outdated equipment, their lack of the advanced weaponry that had become the standard in galactic warfare. They expected the humans to falter, to crumble under the pressure of facing the swarm head-on. Yet, when the first wave of the Raxian swarm emerged, surging forward with the mindless ferocity of a hurricane, the humans did not respond as expected. Instead of engaging in a direct confrontation, Reed's team vanished into the rocky terrain, disappearing from sight. The aliens watched in confusion, unsure of what to make of this strange behavior. This was not the orderly, predictable battle they had anticipated. As the swarm pushed forward, searching for their elusive prey, they were met with something entirely unexpected. The humans had set traps, crude by the standards of the Galactic Union, but devastatingly effective. Explosions rocked the battlefield, catching the swarm off guard and throwing them into disarray. The aliens, observing from their command posts, were stunned. This was not the work of an undisciplined, primitive force. This was calculated, precise, and executed with a level of cunning they had never associated with humanity. The humans did not fight like any other species the aliens had encountered. They did not rely on brute force or overwhelming firepower. Instead, they struck from the shadows, using the terrain to their advantage, exploiting every weakness in the swarm's advance. Captain Reed's team moved like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected, hitting hard, and then vanishing before the swarm could retaliate. It was unconventional warfare, the kind that defied the rigid strategies the aliens had always relied upon. The Raxian swarm, so accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers, began to show signs of confusion. Their relentless advance slowed, hesitation creeping into their ranks. They were not used to this kind of battle, where the enemy did not stand and fight but instead lured them into a deadly game of cat and mouse. The humans manipulated the terrain with an almost uncanny precision, leading the swarm into narrow choke points where their numbers counted for nothing, and then unleashing devastating ambushes that left the battlefield littered with Raxian bodies. The alien soldiers, watching the battle unfold, began to feel a growing unease. This was not how it was supposed to go. They had expected the humans to be overwhelmed, to be crushed under the weight of the swarm's onslaught. But instead they were witnessing something that defied all their expectations. The humans were not just surviving, they were winning. And they were doing it with a level of ingenuity and adaptability that the aliens had never believed possible. Captain Reed's team was not just reacting to the swarm's movements, they were predicting them. Every time the swarm adjusted their tactics, the humans were already 2 steps ahead, countering with a strategy that turned the situation in their favor. It was as if Reed could see the battle unfolding before it happened, guiding his team with an almost preternatural instinct. The alien commanders, who had prided themselves on their strategic brilliance, found themselves humbled by the simple, brutal effectiveness of the humans' approach. The battlefield, once a place of certain doom, had become a proving ground for humanity's greatest strengths. The aliens, who had once looked down on humans as primitive and inferior, were forced to confront the reality that they had vastly underestimated their allies. The human warriors did not need the advanced technology or the flawless strategies that the aliens had relied on for so long. They had something far more powerful, a deep, instinctual understanding of survival, honed through countless generations of struggle. As the day wore on, the aliens could no longer deny what they were seeing. The humans were more than just a distraction, more than just a stopgap measure in a desperate war. They were warriors of the highest order, capable of turning the tide of battle with nothing more than their wits and their will. And as they watched Captain Reed lead his team to victory after victory, a new respect began to take root in the hearts of the alien soldiers. This was not the battle they had planned, nor the outcome they had expected. But it was a lesson they would never forget. The humans, with all their flaws and weaknesses, had shown them a new way to fight, a new way to win. And in the process they had proven that true strength did not come from technology or numbers, but from the spirit that refused to be broken, no matter the odds. The alien soldiers, once dismissive and condescending toward their human counterparts, found themselves reassessing everything they thought they knew. As they watched Captain Reed and his team in action, the sneers and smirks faded, replaced by a growing respect that was impossible to ignore. The humans had shown themselves to be something far more dangerous than the aliens had ever anticipated: unpredictable, adaptable, and utterly relentless. The conversations among the alien ranks began to change, shifting from casual derision to a more serious, almost reverent tone. They spoke in hushed voices about the humans' uncanny ability to anticipate the swarm's movements, to adapt their strategies on the fly, and to turn the most dire situations to their advantage. This was not something that could be taught or engineered. It was something deeply ingrained, a survival instinct honed through millennia of struggle. The respect that had begun as a reluctant acknowledgement grew stronger with each passing moment. The humans were not just warriors. They were survivors, and there was a profound difference between the two. The aliens, with all their advanced technology and rigid tactics, had been trained to fight in a way that was precise, calculated, and predictable. But the humans fought with a ferocity that defied logic, driven by something far deeper than training or doctrine. They fought as if their very existence depended on it, because, in a way, it did. And the aliens were beginning to understand that this was the key to humanity's strength. Then came the turning point. The swarm, relentless and ever adapting, began to press harder, their numbers swelling as they sought to overwhelm the Union forces. It was a moment of sheer panic for the alien commanders, who saw their carefully laid plans unraveling before their eyes. The swarm was closing in, and it seemed that all would be lost. The battlefield, which had been a place of hard-fought victories, now teetered on the brink of disaster. But where the aliens saw defeat, Captain Reed saw opportunity. In the midst of the chaos, he devised a plan, one that was as daring as it was dangerous. It was a maneuver that no alien commander would have considered, a move that defied every rule of engagement. But Reed was not bound by the same constraints. He was a man who understood that in war, the rules were often what got you killed. With a calmness that belied the stakes, Reed issued his orders, and his team moved with precision and purpose. They didn't just engage the swarm, they lured them into a trap of their own making. Using the terrain, the humans funneled the swarm into a narrow pass, where their numbers counted for nothing. And then, with devastating force, they struck. The swarm, caught off guard, was thrown into disarray, their relentless advance halted in its tracks. The alien soldiers watched in awe as Reed's team turned the tide, not with overwhelming firepower, but with a combination of courage, instinct, and sheer audacity. It was in this moment that the alien commanders came to a sobering realization. Their reliance on technology, on rigid strategies and predictable tactics, had made them vulnerable. They had believed that their superiority lay in their advancements, in their ability to outthink and outmaneuver their enemies through sheer technical prowess. But the humans had shown them that true strength came from something far more primal. It came from the ability to adapt, to survive, to fight not just with weapons, but with every ounce of determination and will. The humans did not fight because they were ordered to, they fought because they had no other choice. and that made them the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Captain Reed's leadership was a study in contrasts. He was not the loud, commanding presence that many of the alien officers had expected. He did not bark orders or demand obedience through fear. Instead, he led by example, with a quiet confidence that inspired those around him. His team followed him not because they had to, but because they believed in him, because they knew that when everything was on the line, Reed would find a way to pull them through. This bond, forged in the heat of battle, began to extend to the alien soldiers as well. They started to see the humans not as primitive savages, but as equals, as comrades in arms. The respect that had taken root earlier now blossomed into something more, a genuine camaraderie born of shared struggle and mutual reliance. The humans had earned their place among the Union forces, not through technology or grand gestures, but through the simple, undeniable fact that they refused to be beaten. As the battle raged on, this newfound respect solidified into an unspoken alliance. The alien soldiers began to take cues from Reed and his team, adopting some of their unconventional tactics, learning to think on their feet, to trust their instincts as much as their technology. The rigid lines between species, between allies and outcasts, began to blur, replaced by a shared determination to survive, to win. In Captain Reed, the aliens saw a leader who embodied the very essence of what it meant to be human. He was not infallible, not invincible, but he was relentless, adaptable, and above all, he was driven by a deep, unshakable resolve. It was this resolve that had kept humanity alive for so long, and it was this resolve that would see them through this battle as well. The aliens had come to this fight believing they were the masters of the galaxy, that their technology and strategies would see them through any challenge. But now, as they fought alongside the humans, they understood the truth. In the end, it wasn't the most advanced weapons or the most brilliant tactics that would win the day. It was the spirit of those who fought, the indomitable will to survive, to adapt, to overcome. And in this, they had found the greatest strength of all, humanity's unyielding, unstoppable determination. The Raxian swarm, relentless and cunning, had always relied on overwhelming force to crush their enemies, but they were not without strategy. As the battle raged on the front lines, the swarm had quietly infiltrated the Galactic Union's command center, slipping through security with a precision that belied their usual brute force tactics. The Union's leaders, secure in their belief that the center was impenetrable, were caught completely off guard. Alarms blared as chaos erupted within the control room. The once calm and calculated alien leaders were now in a state of panic, their composure shattered as the swarm breached their last line of defense. The command center, which had been a hub of order and strategy, descended into madness. The Raxians moved with terrifying speed, their presence a stark reminder that no place was truly safe. The alien leaders, who had orchestrated countless battles from the safety of their fortified walls, found themselves face to face with the enemy, and they were woefully unprepared. Their technological prowess, their carefully laid plans, all seemed meaningless in the face of the swarm's raw, unrelenting assault. Fear spread like wildfire among the ranks, paralyzing those who had always believed themselves untouchable. In the midst of this chaos, Captain Reed's voice cut through the noise, calm and commanding. He had anticipated this possibility, knowing that the swarm was not an enemy to be underestimated, not even within the Union's most secure stronghold. With swift precision, he mobilized his team, issuing orders that were met with immediate action. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing, only the clear understanding that every second counted. Reed's team moved with a purpose that seemed almost mechanical, yet their actions were anything but. They weren't just reacting to the situation, they were taking control of it, turning the tide of the invasion with a series of rapid, decisive strikes. The swarm, which had expected an easy victory, was met with a resistance so fierce and unyielding that they were forced to reevaluate their approach. The humans, far from being overwhelmed, had taken the fight to them, pushing back with a ferocity that belied their small numbers. As the battle within the command center raged, Reed knew that brute force alone would not be enough. The swarm was too many, too relentless. It was then that he decided to reveal humanity's true strength, something that the Union, with all its advancements, had never fully understood. The alien soldiers, who had witnessed the humans' unconventional tactics on the battlefield, were about to see something even more extraordinary. In the heat of the conflict, Reed tapped into the deepest wells of human emotion, channeling it into the battle with a power that was as terrifying as it was awe-inspiring. Fear, anger, love, these were emotions that the aliens had been taught to suppress, to control. But for the humans, these emotions were not weaknesses. They were their greatest weapons. Reed's team fought with a passion that the swarm had never encountered, each strike fueled by the raw energy of emotions unleashed. The alien soldiers, who had been conditioned to view emotions as liabilities, watched in stunned silence as the humans transformed those very emotions into an unstoppable force. The swarm, which had once seemed invincible, began to falter. They had faced countless enemies, but never one like this. The human warriors fought as though they had nothing left to lose, their determination pushing them beyond the limits of physical endurance. It was a final stand, one that defied the logic of survival, but it was exactly what was needed. The swarm, disoriented and demoralized, began to retreat, unable to withstand the relentless onslaught of human fury. The alien soldiers, who had initially viewed the humans with skepticism, now saw them in a new light. They realized that the humans' true power did not lie in their weapons or tactics, but in their ability to harness something far more primal. The emotions that had once been seen as weaknesses were, in fact, the very source of their strength. It was this realization that struck the alien soldiers the hardest, the understanding that the humans had a power that no technology could replicate, a power that could turn the tide of any battle, no matter how dire the circumstances. As the dust settled and the command center was secured, the alien leaders, who had once looked down on humanity, found themselves in a state of awe and gratitude. They had witnessed something extraordinary, something that had changed their understanding of what it meant to be a warrior. The humans, with all their flaws and imperfections, had shown them that true strength came not from suppressing one's emotions, but from embracing them, from channeling them into a force that could overcome even the most impossible odds. Captain Reed, ever the stoic leader, did not bask in the glory of victory. For him, the battle was never about proving humanity's worth to the Union. It was about survival, about protecting those who could not protect themselves. But in the eyes of the alien soldiers, Reed and his team had become something more than just allies. They had become legends. The final stand against the swarm was not just a victory, it was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was a light that could never be extinguished. And so, as the Union forces regrouped and prepared for the battles yet to come, they did so with a newfound respect for the humans who had fought alongside them. The swarm had been beaten back, but the war was far from over. Yet in the hearts of the alien soldiers, there was a new hope, a belief that with humanity by their side, there was no enemy they could not defeat. The humans had revealed their trump card, and it was a game-changer in the truest sense, an indomitable will, fueled by the very emotions that made them who they were. And that, more than anything, was what made them the most formidable warriors in the galaxy. The Raxian swarm, once an unstoppable force that had swept across the galaxy, was now in full retreat. Their overwhelming numbers, once a source of terror, had been shattered by a resistance they had never expected. The Galactic Union had managed to secure a narrow victory, but it was a victory that had come at great cost. The battlefield was littered with the remnants of the swarm's relentless assault, and the air was thick with the echoes of a battle that had pushed all involved to their very limits. The Union's forces, battered and bruised, now stood victorious, but there was no mistaking who had turned the tide in this desperate fight. The role of humanity in this victory was undeniable. The alien leaders, who had once doubted the capabilities of their human allies, now found themselves in a position of profound respect. The humans, with their unconventional tactics and unyielding spirit, had been the decisive factor in a battle that had seemed all but lost. The alien commanders, who had prided themselves on their superior technology and strategic brilliance, were forced to acknowledge that without the humans, this victory would never have been possible. It was a humbling realization, one that shifted the very foundation of how they viewed their place in the galaxy. As the dust settled and the survivors began to take stock of what had just occurred, the alien soldiers found themselves reflecting on the battle and the extraordinary role humanity had played. The lessons learned were as profound as they were unexpected. The humans had shown that strength was not just about firepower or numbers. It was about adaptability, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will to survive. These were qualities that the Union had often overlooked in their human counterparts, dismissing them as primitive or unsophisticated. But now, in the aftermath of this brutal conflict, those same qualities were seen in a new light. The humans were no longer viewed as mere auxiliaries or a last resort. They were warriors, every bit as formidable as the most advanced species in the Union, perhaps even more so because of the very traits that had once been dismissed as weaknesses. The Galactic Union, once so confident in its superiority, now found itself re-evaluating its relationship with humanity. The humans had proven that they were not just valuable allies but essential ones. Their ability to think outside the confines of rigid military doctrine, to adapt to situations as they unfolded, and to fight with a passion that bordered on ferocity had redefined the Union's understanding of warfare. The humans had taught them that the most advanced technology and the most meticulously planned strategies were meaningless without the heart and soul to back them up. It was a lesson that would resonate deeply within the Union, changing the way they approached future conflicts and alliances. Captain Alexander Reed, who had led his team with unwavering resolve, took a moment to reflect on the battle and its implications. For him, this victory was not just about the defeat of the Raxian swarm. It was a testament to the resilience of his team and the enduring strength of humanity. Reed had always known that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their weapons or their tactics, but in their ability to endure, to adapt, and to rise above any challenge. This battle had proven that beyond any doubt. But it also highlighted the potential for something greater, a future where humanity could stand as equals among the stars, respected not just for their tenacity but for their unique contributions to the galaxy. Reed understood that this battle was just the beginning. The swarm had been driven back, but the galaxy was vast, and there would be other threats, other challenges. Yet, he was confident that humanity was ready. They had shown what they were capable of, and now, they had earned the respect and recognition that had long been denied to them. Reed's thoughts turned to the future, to the potential alliances that could be forged, to the evolving relationship between humanity and the Galactic Union. The possibilities were as vast as the galaxy itself, and for the first time, Reed felt a sense of optimism about what lay ahead. In the quiet aftermath, as the alien leaders regrouped and began to plan their next moves, there was a palpable shift in the air. The humans, once seen as a last-ditch effort, were now viewed as indispensable allies. The battle had not just been a victory against the swarm, it had been a victory for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Union would never look at them the same way again. The perception of humans as primitive and inferior had been shattered, replaced by a newfound respect for their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unbreakable spirit. As the story of this battle spread throughout the galaxy, it became clear that something had changed forever. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the annals of galactic history. They had become a force to be reckoned with, a power that could no longer be ignored or underestimated. The galaxy's perception of humans had been irrevocably altered, and with it, the future of the Galactic Union itself. The importance of adaptability, emotion, and the underestimated power of humanity had been brought into sharp focus. The battle had shown that these qualities were not weaknesses to be overcome but strengths to be celebrated. In the end, it was not technology or numbers that had won the day, it was the indomitable will of a species that refused to be broken. And in that, the galaxy had found a new measure of true strength, a strength that would shape the future in ways no one could have predicted.